Hello, this is part two of the exam feedback training for paper three A-level psychology summer 2023. If you haven't seen part one, then you can find it in the same playlist. So we're going to be looking at two more extended response questions in this video, again with I think three candidate responses for each one, which you can have a go at marking yourself. You can find the mark scheme along with the responses we're going to look at in the description of this video to download, but you should be able to actually do it all just from pausing the video and seeing what's on screen as well, if you prefer to work that way. So we're going to start by looking at question 5, which is the 12 marker. Evaluate the extent to which human behavior, such as the ability to read, can be explained by biological psychology. You must make reference to the context about Ada in your answer. A challenging question this, and a number of teachers shared that um, they would have struggled to answer it. And I think that the key thing here is that students should be prepared to face a scenario that is unlike the typical things that they've looked at when it comes to this question, because examiners are seeking to find out whether they can think creatively and apply their knowledge to a situation which is really novel. Um, this is assessing all three assessment objectives with a balance, 4 marks, 4 marks, 4 marks between each of them. And it therefore requires knowledge and understanding of the biological approach, application to the scenario, and evaluation leading to judgments and conclusions. So if we have a quick look at the mark scheme, we've then therefore got descriptors for the AOs for each of them, for each of the levels. And what you need to do here is make a judgment about which descriptor best fits the AO1, the AO2, and then the AO3, and then work out a best fit whereabouts it is overall. And we'll see some examples of how the examiners do that now. So let's look at candidate response 1. It spreads over 2 slides. So pause if you'd like to read this one before we go on. Here is the second half of it. And on the next slide, we'll have some highlighting to show where the skills are being credited by the examiner. Okay, so we've got AO1 knowledge in purple, highlight down the side, where the text itself is actually highlighted in green. That's AO2 contents linking to the scenario and Ada. And then there's some evaluation, some AO3 being highlighted here in blue. And if we move on to look at the final part, we've got some more evaluation with some embedded AO2 here as well. So what mark was awarded? Well, for AO1, this was judged to be level 2, mostly accurate knowledge and understanding, so not bad, but in the bottom half of the mark scheme levels. Stronger on the AO2, lines of argument supported by applying relevant evidence from the context, and some ability to integrate and synthesize relevant knowledge, so that makes it into level 3. The evaluation is back at level 2 though, statements with some development in the form of mostly accurate and relevant factual material, some superficial conclusions being made. So it's level 2 overall, which has a 5 marks in the middle of it, but it's actually pulled up to 6 out of 12, which was the mark awarded because of the stronger AO2 being in level 3. So 6 out of 12 for response 1. Let's have a look at response 2. Pause if you want to read that. And I'll just move on now to the second half of it, or the third, as I should say. Pause again if you don't want to see the highlighted version of this. And what mark would you give this one? Okay, so candidate response 2. Forgive me while I just navigate to my notes for this. So you can see from the highlighting, purple again AO1, green AO2, blue AO3. Here we go then, AO1, this is level 3. So stronger than the previous response, accurate knowledge and understanding. The AO2 is also judged to be at level 3 once again. And the AO3 here is again a bit stronger than the first response we looked at, level 3, mostly coherent chains of reasoning, conclusion being presented, a grasp of competing arguments, but the evaluation may be imbalanced. So that was awarded 8 marks out of 12. Now we've got one more to look at. Response 3. There's the first half of it. Moving on to the second half now. And on the next slide, we have some highlighting here. Okay, so AO1 in purple, AO2 in green, AO3 in blue. There's the rest of it. In terms of the leveling, the AO1 here was again put at level 3. Accurate knowledge and understanding, but not quite the thoroughness to get it into the top band. But the AO2, sorry, is level 4. Sustained application, relevant evidence from the context, integration and synthesis of relevant knowledge, and the AO3 is also strong and gets into the top mark band, so that's level 4 as well. So deciding the overall mark, this is a level 4 response because 2 of the assessment objectives were in level 4, but the examiners decided to go for the bottom of that level because the AO1 pulled it down a bit, so 10 out of 12, but that's a strong response. Okay, so we're going to look at the 20 mark question now, which is question 6. Here it is: assess the ethical issues in psychological research using humans and animals. And candidates should know going into the exam that when they have a 20 marker, it's another one of these imbalanced questions in terms of assessment objectives. 8 marks available for AO1 and 12 marks for the AO3. And assess means that they need to make judgments, which are basically the same as conclusions. So here's the level-based mark scheme, which has a level 5. And those that did well gave those imbalanced responses that I was explaining, where they focused more time on the AO3. Okay. Here we go then, candidate 1. There's the first 2 pages. Pause if you would like to. There's the next 2. And there's a bit of a 5th page coming up here. And moving on to look at the highlighted version of this. So there we have AO1 in purple at the start of the response, an integrated approach with AO3 following in each of those first 2 long paragraphs. That pattern continues here. And on the final page, again, we've got some AO1 followed by some AO3. Okay, so the judgment here is that the AO1 is at the top of level 3. It's accurate knowledge and understanding. The AO3 is level 3 again, but at the bottom of level 3. So mostly coherent chains of reasoning. An assessment is presented. It does consider a range of factors. This is a decent answer. They've demonstrated understanding of competing arguments, but they haven't necessarily grasped all of their significance. The assessment leads to a judgment, but it's imbalanced. So level 3, we start at 11 marks, but come down to 10 for the final mark, 10 out of 20, because of the AO3 being less strong than the AO1. So here we have another one, candidate response 2. And moving on to the next couple of pages of this now. Again, there is a final page here for candidate response 2. What mark would you give this one, we wonder? And here we go with the annotated version. So we looked at an integrated response just now from candidate 1. candidate 2 has gone for separated. So we've got all AO1 here. Then the AO3 starts to come in, but mainly it's page 4 there. And then we have a bit of integration, skipping backwards and forth there, but a lot of AO1. So the AO1 here is judged to be kind of on the boundary of level 4 and level 5. It's accurate and thorough, and the descriptors are very similar, not the same for levels 4 and 5 for the AO1. It's really the AO3 that differentiates them, so that's why it's level 4/5. Level 3, arguments developed using mostly coherent chains of reasoning, leading to an assessment being presented which considers a range of factors. There's a judgment, it's in balance, so it's level 3 again for the AO3. And so there's a good example here of a candidate who's really gone to town with the AO1, but they would have been better off if they kept that shorter and gave themselves more time to extend their AO3 and focus more on the kind of balanced judgments and conclusions there. So it's level 4 overall, but it's only just there because the AO3 is more heavily weighted here. And so it's down near the bottom of level 4. That gets 13 out of 20, despite its great strengths in AO1. Okay, so candidate response 3 here. There's the start. Moving on to the next 2 pages here. And the final page for response 3 is here. Okay, so hopefully you've had a chance to read that properly now. Consider the mark that you would award. And the pattern here continues with each response being stronger than the last. So there's some more integration here, AO1 followed by AO3. Continues throughout the response, but you can see, hopefully just at a glance from the highlighting, that there's significantly more AO3 in this response compared to the previous one. So the AO1 here, again, level 4/5, accurate and thorough. There's plenty there. The AO3 is also at level 5 here. So this is an example of what the students are aiming for. A really strong response, well-developed logical assessment, logical chains of reasoning throughout, full understanding and awareness of the significance of competing arguments and factors. A balanced judgment is presented. Not quite enough still to get it into the very top of the band, but this was awarded 18 out of 20, so that's really strong. And that brings us to the end of our A-level exam feedback pretty much. We finished off just with a quick reminder of some of the website resources. If you're newer to the specification, you might not have seen the exemplar booklet. That's a really useful source of more of these type of exemplar responses with the examiner's explanation of why different marks are awarded. There's a course planner document on there, which is worth a look if you haven't already seen it, and the level-based marks scheme additional guidance if you're fairly new to these level-based mark schemes, and they are challenging to use, so that's worth checking as well. Those are my contact details. Subject advisor, do sign up for monthly updates if you haven't already, and there's other useful links that you can find in the description of this video. I'll make sure that they're there as well, where you can check grade boundary information, results, statistics, and so on. Professional Development Academy for more training opportunities. Thanks for watching.